My intro was fairly brief, but I am Casey McKinley, director of the Woodville Karst Plain Project. And what I'd like to just sort of cover with the group tonight is similar to an overview I provided to the Wakulla Springs Alliance at the request of Sue, I believe a week or so ago. So I'll keep it simple and to the point, just so everyone has their bearings here, if you can see the sort of the larger cave system map. We've got Tallahassee up here to the north and the Gulf of Mexico down here to the south. And the Woodville Karst Plain is a big limestone plain, approximately 450 square miles. And it runs from the south of Tallahassee all the way down to the Gulf. And to the west, it borders the Apalachicola National Forest, and to the east, it more or less borders Jefferson County. And within this karst plain, there's currently 45 miles of mapped cave passageway. And the Wakulla cave system makes up a good chunk of that at about 35 miles. And the lesser known Sinkhole cave system is currently mapped out at about 6 miles. So this is the main cave system in blue, coming all the way down. We've got Wakulla Spring over here. And up here where 319 crosses 267, you have the Sinkhole cave system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit further, if that's helpful. And I'll give you just a brief background on the Sinkhole cave system. As I mentioned, it's about 6 miles of explored passageway. Currently, it's owned by St. Joe, and it's a hunting lease. So our access into the property prior to the hunting lease was through St. Joe, but we have a relationship established with the leaseholder, and they allow us in for exploration and mapping of the cave system. To the northwest of 319 and 267, you've got 2 entrances into the cave system. The first is Sinkhole Sink. Those of you that may have been around the county for some years, as I understand it, was named after Chip Rivers. And you've got another entrance into the cave system referred to as Cal's Cave, formerly Moody Cave. And I'm sure maybe offline, Cal is here with us tonight, and he gives a little background on that at some point, but it is named after Cal. And it was first explored in 1974. Just this past year, we traced it to the main Wakulla cave system, which then connects to Wakulla Springs, as we all know. And roughly, we estimate, even though the physical connection has not yet been made, we're working on that. But the rains that started this past summer and continued through the fall have kind of kept us out of the water, but we're eager to get back in and pursue what we believe is the connecting passageway. If we make that physical connection, we estimate it's probably about 8 miles from the intersection 267 and 319, where Sinkhole goes beneath. And with water moving about 1 mile a day through the cave system, it would be about an 8-day transit time to Wakulla Springs. That is the sinkhole, the Sinkhole cave system sinkhole. And it's commonly covered with duckweed. It's not usually it's not as impressive as Wakulla Springs to look at, but it is an entry down into the aquifer, into the cave system. And then this is an oldie but a goodie, Cal, of the entrance to Cal's Cave, which starts off as a dry cave, and then eventually you find your way kind of to the water that leads down through a restrictive crack down into the cave system. But both of these are karst features located on this St. Joe property to the northwest of said corner or said intersection. If we zoom in a little bit further, this kind of highlights the cave system in green you've got US 319 coming down here and State Road 267 coming up from Wakulla Springs heading northwest. And the arrow outlines this proposed construction site, as I understand it, which would be on the northwest corner of the intersection. To the southeast corner, there was already a gas station located right here. And from the cave system or the sinkhole entrance here, the dive team typically travels down through this passageway. It actually crosses beneath 267 twice, crosses underneath 319, goes back under 267, and then crosses 267 again as it continues its path from northwest to southeast towards the main cave system. And then this is a sort of a graphic visual, not of this particular crossing, but where the main Wakulla cave system up near Emerald Sink crosses beneath 319. And this is a digital rendering of the sonar profile of the cave beneath 319. And it's kind of an interesting way to look at things because you get a little bit more than a green line or a red line, and it shows some dimensional elements of the cave system passage, which is almost at this point 200 feet below the roadway, and it's quite impressive to see this. So these cave systems, the cave systems kind of wind beneath the land surface. Wakulla County is world renowned for its karst topography. And it's there's a lot of limestone, and there's many of these passageways beneath our feet. This is, I'm also open to questions at any point along the way, but this is as I understand it from Google Maps, which is something we reviewed during the Wakulla Springs Alliance meeting, but this is again, 319, 267, this is the proposed property right here. And it's more or less, the location is directly above the Chips Hole Cave System passageway. And at this point, from the surface down to the actual cave passageway is a depth of about 100 feet. So in this area, the chip system is relatively shallow compared to the deeper Wakulla system. So these passages are closer to the surface than the Wakulla cave system. Again, about 8 miles downstream to Wakulla Springs. Estimated 8-day transit time of anything that would leak down from the surface into the cave passageway and get swept downstream. This should be the graphic I think Sue was mentioning, perhaps. That was provided recently. And it does kind of further zoom in on the proposed location. And then you can see kind of the cave passageway in blue bordering the south end of the development site. But also keep in mind, this blue line doesn't really give you any sort of width or dimensional data. When the cave is surveyed, it's usually right down the middle. So you could have 30, 40 feet on each side of the passage of the blue line here that would, represent more the width of the cave. This just gives you a general reference as to the location of the cave.
Casey, are there any thoughts to do a digital similar to the other you just showed? Rendering that's digital? Sonar?
Yes, our plan was to take the sonar system into this particular section of the Chips Hole Cave passageway. In fact, our plan was to sonar profile the entire length of it. Weather has not been cooperative the past 6 months in allowing us to do that. However, it is a plan to do that. For reference, this is almost 2 miles downstream after you leave the surface. So it takes a little bit of time to get there and to bring all the hardware down there. But eventually, if conditions allow us to do that, we are going to do that, and we would make that profile public. I can't say that that's something we would be able to do in the short term. It depends on the weather. We do want to pursue the physical connection of the passageway we identified with dye trace, but it's something that ideally, if we could do in the next 6 months or this year, we would do that and then make that available. If we zoom back out a little bit, this may give you a little bit of a better kind of visual of the proposed corner in question here at 267 and 319. That water is then going to flow down through the cave passageway here. It will eventually make its way through passages we're yet to physically connect, but the dye did go through, hitting the main Wakulla cave system here, continuing to travel downstream, and then making its way over to Wakulla, and then the resurgence here at the main Wakulla spring. So Chips in general hasn't been a very promoted or publicized cave system over the years, but it does play a role in terms of directing water that's draining off of the Apalachicola National Forest. Black Creek does make its way up into here and is thought to contribute to the water that flows into Chips Hole. But the water coming off the forest goes down into the Swallettes, into the cave system here, and then begins to make its way downstream into the main cave system, and then on to Wakulla Springs, and then some of that will also go to Spring Creek. And then, as I may have mentioned, in June of 2021, we did travel downstream in the Chips Hole system to a far enough point we felt it was valuable to release the dye from. And we did release the dye from Chips Hole, and we picked it up with sensors only a few days later in the Wakulla Springs cave system. And we'll see if we can maybe get this to play a little bit. So this is one of the divers about 3 miles downstream from the entrance, releasing a dye pack into a passageway that we believe is the connection passageway further downstream. And as you can see, as he's releasing that dye, there's a good amount of pull into the cave system as the dye starts to travel with the water and gets vacuumed in. And that could be a reasonable representation of any contaminants that could leak down into the cave system. They would get picked up in a similar manner and get swept downstream along with the water. So even though it may not be visible with just water and looking at that video, you can see the dye is getting picked up and swept down. So the siphon force is very strong in that particular passageway.
Do you release just one pack?
We released basically 100 ounces of dye, which is very concentrated and was more than enough to cover the distance that we needed it to cover to just confirm connection to the Wakulla cave system But we didn't trace all the way to Wakulla because that's already been done from the Wakulla cave system near Turner Sink and farther upstream. So that's already a known entity. We just wanted to see if the dye, once released, showed up into the cave system, and then it's already confirmed that from those locations in the cave system, it will make its way to Wakulla. This image here is actually from the Wakulla cave system in the vicinity of where that dye was picked up, which is near the Turner Sink entrance, for those of you that might be familiar with that location, which is also technically part of Wakulla Springs State Park. So as you can see, the cave passageway here is quite large. There's large volumes of water moving through it. The dye would make its way into this passageway and then get picked up with more water and then get flushed downstream to Wakulla, about 7 miles away. And then eventually this is where it'll end up. And then in this general vicinity where we release the dye, the passageways are not small. So the Chips Hole cave system is quite impressive in terms of its size and both width and height in certain areas. So it's not a small cave system, and it's more than just a green line or a blue line, for example. So as you can see, it's quite beautiful, actually. It's very carved out. There's a fair amount of water that moves through this system and contributes to the overall water going to Wakulla Springs.
Does it share with the Farrell property at all? Does it touch there?
It will connect to the Farrell property for sure, because the Farrell property is connected into the Wakulla cave system already. The Farrell property is going to be more or less to the east side of the cave system, the Wakulla cave system, whereas Chips Hole is to the west side. So both of those areas contribute to the main cave system, you know, with the water then flowing to Wakulla Springs. So yes, in fact, they are connected below the surface.
And he was mentioning Turner Sink. The Turner Sink property abuts the Farrell property.
That's correct. So the Turner Sink property abuts the Farrell property. They're connected on the surface, and they're connected below the surface as well.
What is R2? It was on there earlier. It looked like R-T-U-N-N-E.
Our tunnel.
Oh, tunnel. Okay.
Yes, our tunnel would be,
I didn't see that.
I'm going to just back up just a bit, because there's lots of maps and lots of cave systems.
Oh, that was covered up. That's
So, you know, here's the Farrell property up over here. Okay. So
I don't think we can see your cursor.
oh, you can't. Okay.
Oh,
Let's see if we can try this.
you can see
On the
it until
black.
it's on the screen.
Yeah.
Well, trying to, I don't think pen and laser pointer. Let's give this a try.
There we go.
How's that?
There you go. Perfect.
Hey, technology. So this is the main Wakulla cave system that comes down from the National Forest, and it goes from Emerald Sink through the River Sinks, comes down here over near Turner Sink, and then continues to flow all the way down to Wakulla Springs. Over here would be the Farrell tract. So you can see you've got contribution coming in from the Farrell tract through existing map passageways, and that also flows down. And over here, the Chips Hole system winds all the way down, and it kind of gets right into this area where the dye has gone through, but the divers need to complete the connection. And we're very focused on doing that in the near future. It's actually been a project we've been working on for 20 years. It's just a more challenging cave. But this will eventually be connected in. And our tunnel is actually just this passageway right here that we named when we first discovered it back in back in 2006. And then ultimately our tunnel proved to be the connection to the main cave passageway that connected the two systems in 2007, right here at this connection point. So we leave the original name of the connecting tunnel here, but this is all one big 35-mile cave system that links Wakulla to the National Forest, and then ultimately it continues to head south, and we expect it'll connect to the Gulf of Mexico one day. So it's a very large, extensive cave system with several other cave systems in close proximity. Chips Hole, we expect to physically connect in. The dye has connected Indian Springs, which is now Sherlock Springs, just up to the northwest of the park. Dye has been released in here in Indian Springs. This has been picked up in the main cave system. So this is physically connected in some way, but it hasn't been done by divers. And of course, we've got the Sally Ward cave system, and dye released here has also been picked up in the Wakulla cave system. So they're hydrologically connected. They're just not physically connected at this point. So Chips is also the same. So all these cave systems are physically connected below the surface. So with that, I'd be happy to take any additional questions. I know in addition to providing the data and giving an overview, not being a professional geologist, I can't really give an opinion other than to say there's probably better places that are less likely to impact the cave system and the water in a negative way than this particular proposed location. It's not a great place to place a gas station, in my opinion. Additional data may need to be gathered in terms of maybe some ground penetrating analysis, or perhaps another geology firm could conduct a study, either for the county or for the Friends of Wakulla to make another determination. There's already a gas station on that southeast corner, which is not currently directly above or really in that close proximity to the cave system. So I wouldn't see that being an issue. And then also that southwest corner seems a much better location if you were looking to place a gas station on one of those other corners. The northwest corner and the northeast corner, for that matter, are less ideal in my opinion, but that's really probably the extent of the opinion I can offer.
So the concern is that there might be some gas leakage that, you know, makes its way through the soil into the cave system, into the water supply. Am I getting that right?
I believe so. I believe that is the concern. And just to clarify that, because of the direct relationship of that property above the cave system, the fact that the cave system in this particular location is relatively shallow, less than 100 feet below the surface. And the fact that in Wakulla County, it's basically sand above limestone rock, so you don't have any filter there. So
Okay.
anything that is spilled on that sandy surface or leaks from any sort of tank is going to make its way down through the sand relatively quickly, hit the rock, and then it will be, it'll show up in the cave system and then probably get swept downstream fairly quickly. So I think that you are correct. That is the concern.
I just wanted to summarize it in case one of our planning commissioners were watching.
Casey, this is Renee. Do you know if St. Joe and the Southwest Georgia Oil Company, are they aware of the situation with the cave system on this property?
I believe St. Joe is. We know the current leaseholder, which is the hunting club, is aware of that because we update them. We've provided them maps and videos. I can't say for sure, Renee, if they've communicated that back to St. Joe in recent years. It would be tough for me to speculate. They may know, they may not want to know. It's always hard to say. You know, the WKPP, for example, prior to Wakulla Springs acquiring the property around Emerald Sink, we used to lease that from St. Joe. St. Joe knew there were cave systems in this area, but this particular property, I can't say for sure, but they are aware of systems in the area.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The only thing I'd like to
Very
point,
good presentation.
oh, really,
Thank you.
it was great. The only thing I'd like to point out, something Casey had said, is that it's not like the Friends or a lot of us need to object to maybe a restaurant going there or anything along those lines. It's just a gas station would probably not be the best or the ideal choice of a building there because of everything we've just heard.
And Sue, what is directly across from that? There are homes there to the south, the southwest. Are those homes?
There is a subdivision over there. What is that, the farm or something? I'm not sure.
Well, there's a spot in front of it. Is that what you were suggesting is more suitable as an option? Yeah, right where the red dot is.
Yeah, I would say this corner and this corner are not the best choices. And that's, I'm just trying to keep it very simple.
Right.
There's better options probably here, and there's already a gas station here. Clearly, they're still in some proximity, but they're not directly above. I would defer to a geologist to say, you know, what is the risk on this corner relative to this corner in terms of introducing contaminants into the cave passageway. My guess would be the risk is a little bit higher here. I'm not sure how to quantify that risk, but that is just kind of a common sense observation that I think others share as well.
Okay, well,
Julie, this is
to make
Julie,
it,
sorry.
Julie, this is Dale. Is there? Do we want to discuss this further? Because I have several questions.
yeah, please chime in.
Well, could someone tell me what the status of the land use for this is on the county? Is it zoned agricultural, zoned commercial? Is there an active proposal pending? Or is this just information for us for tonight?
I know there's a proposal
Yeah.
pending.
I think it's zoned agricultural now. And right now, the property owner has no rights to build on that corner. The county has to give them the right to build there through this comp plan amendment that's being considered.
Ah,
So this is the time to stop it. Before, if the county does indeed pass it, then they will forward it to DEP. And there'll be another opportunity to oppose it then. But that's a lot harder at that point. It was recommended by one of the county commissioners that we stop it at the county commission level.
and do we know what the commissioner's, the county manager's recommendation is gonna be on this?
I don't.
No.
Not yet. Should we leave it like that?
Okay,
Any other questions, Bill?
I'm not sure what. Yeah, I'm just not sure, Julie, whether you're calling for us to take some kind of action tonight on this.
No, I don't think so. This is a point of information.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This is Renee. Do we know when it's gonna go before the planning commission for a decision on the changing the status of the property?
Well, we know it's not in January because I contacted Summerpel before the end of the year, and it wasn't on the planning and zoning for January. So towards the end of January, they will let us know what is on the planning and zoning agenda for February. And I believe they meet the second Thursday at 7 o'clock. So at the end of this month, we'll know whether or not it goes in front of the planning commission.
And thank you. And one final question, is that the property on the, I guess, where the cursor is that also St. Joe property? Do we know?
It was St. Joe property, but according to the property appraiser's website, it belongs to the Georgia Oil Company now.
Oh, no. I meant the property across the street where the laser one is on the, I guess, the south.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, right there. Thank you. Yeah. Do we know who owns that property?
That's part of the subdivision that Ben Boynton put in. I can't remember, I don't remember
The
the name of it.
farms, what she was saying was the farms?
No, the farm is different.
Okay.
Yeah, but that, the southwest corner is a Seward subdivision, and where the cursor is now, that's probably about in where the highway lane is gonna be. They're widening that to a 4-lane divided highway down through there, but there'll be plenty of room for commercial development there.
Yeah, I think this is the widening, Cal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the widening. Yeah, I'm not aware of who owns this.
Yeah, I was just thought maybe you might know, but thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Casey, this has been helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, and feel free to use this clearly. If you need it in a different format, just contact me offline and I can provide it. So it is a sensitive corner for sure. And hopefully there's better options. And then there's also the possibility, if the oil company isn't aware of this already, once made aware, it could change things, but I would have to leave that probably to the Friends or the Wakulla Springs Alliance to kind of approach them on that. But anyway, okay. So is it okay if I hit stop share and?
yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome, and we're glad to provide this data. Thank you.